Staying with West Asia, let's look at something else making news in Iran. Tehran says it has developed a hypersonic missile. The missile, named Fatah, was unveiled yesterday. The unveiling ceremony was attended by Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi. Also present were senior commanders of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Why the grand event? Because a hypersonic missile marks a new milestone in Iran's missile program. A missile is considered hypersonic when it can travel at least 5 times the speed of sound. That makes it a problem for most missile defense systems. The new Fatah missile can allegedly travel at 15 times the speed of sound. If it isn't an exaggeration, that would be quite a feat. Iran says the Fatah hypersonic missile is a crucial deterrent. Here's our report.
Iran, the Shiite hegemon in West Asia, Saudi Arabia's rival for dominance, Israel's existential threat, and America's perpetual headache in what it calls the Middle East. Tehran has caused a stir yet again. It has unveiled a powerful new weapon. This is the Fatah hypersonic missile. It was introduced with great fanfare on Tuesday. Top Iranian officials were invited to the show, from President Ibrahim Raisi to the commanders of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And the center stage was reserved for the Iranian military's latest toy, the Fatah hypersonic missile. Iran says it's a game changer.
We are able to precisely hit any target within the range of 1400 kilometers, and there exists no system that can rival or counter this missile.
That is General Amir Ali Hajizadeh, the commander of the Revolutionary Guard Aerospace Division. His department developed the Fatah missile. He says it can reach speeds between 13 to 15 times the speed of sound. That's Mach 13 to Mach 15 in technical terms. It's quite an achievement. To qualify as hypersonic, a missile just needs to be 5 times faster than the speed of sound, or Mach 5. The Fatah can supposedly reach 3 times that speed. Impressive, if true. Then there's General Hajizadeh's other boast. He says there exists no system that can rival or counter the Fatah missile. Was that just grandstanding? 2 missile defense systems in West Asia may have been on the general's mind when he made this claim: the US Patriot system and Israel's Iron Dome. Both are famously effective. Both are used by Iran's rivals. Now, Iran says nothing can counter its attacks. So, is Tehran trying to drum up tensions to provoke a new conflict? Well, Iran says this will boost its deterrence power and help maintain peace.
Today we feel that the deterrent power has been formed. This power is an anchor of lasting security and peace for the regional countries.
Deterrence isn't a new concept, of course. Everyone relies on it. The concept is simple. Make the enemy think it isn't worth attacking you due to the potential casualties. All countries, especially the nuclear-armed ones, employ this thinking. But while the new missile may dissuade a military attack, Iran's enemies have already responded with hostile moves of a different kind. More sanctions. As soon as Iran went public with the Fatah missile yesterday, the US went to work. Yesterday itself, Washington imposed over a dozen new sanctions. They targeted people and entities in Iran, China, and Hong Kong. Why China and Hong Kong? The US believes that firms in China and Hong Kong are helping Iran's military ambitions. One of the people sanctioned is Iran's defense attaché in Beijing, Dawood Damghani. The US says he helped procure parts and technology for key actors in Iran's ballistic missile development. And it doesn't seem far-fetched. China has been developing hypersonic missiles for a while now. Beijing's hypersonic program is ahead of Washington's. It's very possible that it helped out a fellow US rival. Now, the question is, what next? Will this new Iranian weapon spur the US into ramping up its own hypersonic program? Will Israel enter the hypersonic arms race? What about Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states? The only thing that's certain is that tensions in West Asia aren't dying down anytime soon.
Meantime, the clock is ticking towards midnight in Iraq and Syria. So does it also mean we're closer to more U.S. retaliatory strikes? First, new reaction from the Biden administration on the airstrikes on Iran-backed targets in Iraq and Syria. The deputy Pentagon press secretary telling me today the strikes send a strong signal about American capabilities and to expect more strikes soon.
We believe we had extreme success in targeting the 85 targets that we hit yesterday. This is a multi-pronged strategy. This was our first response late yesterday, and we will continue to hold those forces, whether it be IRGC-backed militias or their affiliate groups responsible for the attacks on U.S. forces.
I'm joined right now by General Barry McCaffrey, retired four-star general, Gulf War division commander, and now MSNBC military analyst.
I think the second one is we don't have a narrative that solely says we're trying to protect our forces. We need to talk about why are they there? What is our strategic purpose? What are we trying to achieve tactically? If it's a counter-ISIS mission, but we're being attacked by Shia Muslim proxies for Iran, then we better articulate a new strategy and go after it. We do need a new consideration of our strategic posture. What are we trying to do? We're not there at this point in a major way to confront Sunni Muslim terrorist groups like ISIS. So what are we doing? We want intel presence in the region, understand that. We'd like to protect the Kurdish minority in northern Iraq and in Syria. We'd like an air base at al-Assad. But at some point, we need to question the value, the strategic purpose that we're up to.
They put them into a physical location with a particular mission, having not thought through what the implications of that are. And so, by putting them in Syria in these various bases like Al Tanf and Deir el-Zor, that they give them this mission basically to protect oil and to ensure that Israel continues to receive oil, but they couch it that you're fighting ISIS, without thinking through the fact that these tribes that are out there in Western Iraq, we like to call them, these aren't terrorists, but these are tribal groups, and they're Shia. So you've got a combination of family ties and religion, and they don't like outsiders, and so they're in a prime position to attack us. And every attack we launch on them is going to raise the level of desire for revenge, which means they're going to come after us more and more, not less and less. And that's the mistake that the Biden administration is making. They think they can kill their way out of this, that we can kill enough of these people that they'll finally say, oh, we're exhausted, we give up. It's just the opposite.
Is the only way out of it to get the hell out of there. I mean, Reagan took troops out of Lebanon. It was after 240 of them were killed, but he resisted the temptation to accelerate the military activity. He told the neocons of his day to go take a hike.
Yeah. Well, what really concerns me, Judge, is how we've really gone down that slippery slope. 30, 40 years ago, no president would necessarily consider launching military actions and carrying out airstrikes in another country without at least getting some sort of authorization from Congress. They recognize that getting congressional approval means that you've at least got some political backing, that You're not out there all by yourself. Or in addition, we went into the United Nations when we went back to counter the invasion of Saddam Hussein of Kuwait in 1991. We had the backing of the UN at that point. But then we get to 2003, and so without any kind of UN backing, we still go in and we invade Iraq. Now we've gotten to the place that we're launching military strikes in Syria, in Iraq, and we're doing it without the permission of these other of any international body, and without any congressional approval or authority, and not to mention doing Yemen. So now the United States has gotten to the point where it says we can attack any country we want, and yet we profess to uphold this rules-based international order, this sacred thing that, oh, if you can only attack if you are attacked. Well, that's out the window. And we wonder why the rest of the world looks at us and doesn't believe anything we have to say and has zero respect for us. But we've lost the respect of, I think, the vast majority of the world. They see us as a crazed bully.
Taking you back to Ukraine for a minute, how dangerous is this scenario? A Russian plane carrying 65 or 66 Ukrainian prisoners of war is shot down by an American Patriot system inside Russia. This has got to be the first time in history that an American missile has struck down a Russian plane in Russian territory. And the Kremlin exercises restraint and patience. You can imagine if it were the other way around.
Well, let's apply the Tower 22 principle. That base in Jordan that was hit by, we claimed, an Iranian-backed, supported group hit that base. Therefore, we must attack Iran. If the Russians were using our logic, they would be bombing Washington, D.C. and New York City today or tomorrow. Don't do it. It goes back to what you said earlier. We don't need our troops there. We pull the troops out. We need to try more negotiation. Bashar al-Assad is not predisposed to be our enemy. It is important to recall that when ISIS started acting in Syria and they were killing Christians, Syrian Christians, it was Bashar al-Assad who was protecting Christians, and he protected Jews. That's the thing people don't understand. He is not a religious fanatic, but he is a strong Syrian nationalist.
Here's Admiral Kirby talking about Iraq, Baghdad Bob himself.
Yeah.
Yesterday on Fox News talking about the cut number 5, Chris, talking about the authorization for use of military force.
What you saw on Friday night was just the first round. There will be additional response actions taken by the administration against the IRGC and these groups that they're backing.
There are growing calls from some on Capitol Hill that they need from the White House you to come to them to ask for authorization for use of military force. Do you think that will come at some point with this specific set of strikes?
The president is acting consistent with his Article 2 responsibilities as commander-in-chief. These are self-defense actions that we're taking to prevent and to take away capability from these groups from targeting our troops and our facility.
It's such hogwash, Larry, but go ahead, please.
Well, how can, it's stupid. Kirby's stupid. The Biden administration is stupid because they're assuming that everything's going to go swimmingly well and work out exactly as they want, and it's not. So when it turns sour, when they get another strike on another base in Syria or in Iraq that kills 10 Americans, kills 20 Americans, and the question is going to be asked, wait a second. I thought we were degrading their capabilities. Now they continue to kill our forces, and they kill our forces because we're there as a big fat target. There's long history to this. If back in like 1983, the United States decided it was a good idea to shell Hezbollah in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon, and lo and behold, a guy by the name of Idmag Mugnia, we call him a terrorist. He was a Palestinian. He launched attacks on the U.S. Marine barracks that killed over 50 Marines, and then launched attacks on the U.S. Embassy, blew up the U.S. Embassy. So this back and forth, this revenge, this retaliation, it's in the air, and there is no Article 2 authority to just go out and unilaterally launch attacks when we're not even sure who carried it out. And the people, this is the point, we're killing people who were not necessarily involved with that attack. So this is collective punishment, which again is illegal under the Geneva Convention.
And we killed 25 civilians. They don't seem to care about that. How presidents misuse their authority. Article 2, of course, refers to Article 2 of the Constitution, which establishes the presidency and the vice presidency, and among other things, says the president shall be commander-in-chief of the armed forces. But of course, the Constitution also says that only Congress can declare war. To Madison, who wrote the Constitution, commander-in-chief meant you're in charge of the troops in wartime. It doesn't mean you can use them however you want and start any war you want, because Madison also said if the president can start a war and wage a war, he's not a president, he's a prince. It's like a loaded gun in the president's desk, ready for him to shoot whenever he wants. But this is the modern post-Bill Clinton trend to shoot first and look for political support later. How dangerous is Joe Biden playing with fire?
Oh, yeah. Look at what happened. So we're now into week 4 of our military strikes against the Houthis in Yemen. So, this notion that we can launch airstrikes and that these airstrikes will weaken, decimate the Houthis in such a way that they can no longer fire anti-ship missiles has been proven to be false. They continue to fire those missiles, and with each strike in Yemen, they become more defiant. And I think we talked about this the other day when there was a destroyer had to use the phalanx gun, which is, think of it as a gun that shoots out like a solid sheet of metal. It destroyed a missile that was inbound. Well, one of my buddies who's a retired Navy SEAL commander, he commanded the Hercules barge in the Persian Gulf during the 1987-88 oil escort operations when the Iranians were laying mines. He said, man, this is bad news. He says, because the fact that they had to use the phalanx, and that was sort of the last ditch measure to stop that inbound missile, meant that missile had evaded and overcome all other air defense systems to get that close. It means it's a matter of time before one of those missiles is going to hit and destroy one of our ships. And when you sink a destroyer and you're going to wind up with a bunch of dead sailors, well, again, the pressure's going to be on, and we're going to have to hit Yemen harder. But the point is, Judge, we're not willing to put, and I'm not advocating this, but I'm just simply saying that if you decide that Yemen's that kind of threat, then by God, activate your army and go invade it. But we don't do that because from a military standpoint, it is so costly that it doesn't make sense. And we don't even have the soldiers that are enlisted that could carry out the mission. So we have to pull back and stop pretending that we're some mixed martial artist specialist and that we can fight and defeat everybody. Got to look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm a fat old guy. I haven't been exercising and working out. And maybe we need to find another way to try to get along with people, because the reason the Houthis are doing what the Houthis are doing is they want to stop the genocide that's underway in Israel. They want to compel Israel to stop killing the Palestinians, impose a ceasefire. The minute a ceasefire is imposed, the Houthis are going to stop. And give them credit.
Are we doing all of this as bidding for Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I'm not sure it's so much bidding, but it is clearly the Congress, but Senate and House, Republican and Democrat alike, are bought. The majority are bought by the Israeli lobby. You look, this history of the United States being uncritically supportive of Israel started in the mid-1970s, and it coincided when AIPAC became AIPAC. It had changed. There had been another name prior to that, and the previous leader of that lobbying group didn't believe in buying influence. His successor did. And so roughly from 1976 until today, so we're almost 50 years, Israel has been very aggressive in using money to buy members of Congress, and members of Congress happily accept the money and are very strong in their support of Israel. There are very few that can come up and speak with an independent voice. If you come out and try to talk honestly about what Israel is doing to the Palestinians, and I'm not trying to pretend that there's no history there, and I'm not trying to suggest that the Hamas and other Hezbollah organizations have not done some heinous things in the past, and that they're innocent as well. But if you actually try to have an honest discussion about this, you can't, at least in the United States, and be part of the mainstream. You will be attacked, you'll be isolated, and you'll lose friends. And frankly, I think that's part of what Kennedy's afraid of. He wants to be president, and there's money from. He's got some strong Jewish supporters behind him, and he knows that if he comes out and takes an even-handed stance with respect to what's going on, he'll lose their support. I mean, I've lost friends, and I regret that, but you can't put your head in the sand and ignore what's going on. It's one thing if Israel had attacked the actual Hamas fighters who carried out the October 7 operation. That's fair. They shot you, you can shoot them, but that's not what's taking place. Israel is engaged in collective mass punishment. They continue to tell these Palestinian civilians, go to this area, you'll be safe. And as soon as they get there, they start shooting them and bombing them and killing them. And now they're starving them. And then they're preventing aid from reaching them. And then the most heinous of this is they go out and make this wild accusation that 6 members of UNRWA, the United Nations Relief Workers Association that's involved with supporting the Palestinians, they were involved with October 7th without providing a shred of proof, a shred of evidence. But again, if there were 6 or 7 or 12 or 20, or how many were involved out of a 30,000 person organization, you don't punish the whole organization for the actions of a few. That is not the American way, or at least what we once believed was the American way. You hold people accountable for their actions. And that's part of what I think needs to happen with Israel. Israel must be held accountable for its actions because they are criminal.
Do you think a point will come when some military, some state actor, Turkey, Iran, will get involved in degrading the IDF, fighting them back?
Well, I think the IDF is degrading itself right now. They don't need the help of an outside force. And if they act on what they've threatening to do, which is to turn north and to go after Hezbollah, I hesitate saying this. From a humanitarian standpoint, I don't want to see that because it's going to cause a lot of death and destruction. But from a practical standpoint, I hope it happens because that's the only thing that Israel's going to understand when it gets beaten, when it gets defeated in the field, that they'll recognize we can't continue this. And if we do, our entire country is at risk. Its very existence could be threatened. It takes that kind of, it's like when you're dealing with an alcoholic or a drug addict. They've got to hit rock bottom before they come to a realization, I need help. Israel needs help to recognize that it cannot continue to behave in such a terrible criminal way in treating Palestinians as if they are subhuman. You've got to treat them, take that ultimate Jew, Jesus, where he said, treat others as you want to be treated.